Zera Yacob, the Ethiopian rebel of thought history, forgot. Some rebels carry swords, some carry flags, and some carry something far more dangerous than either of those, a mind that refuses to obey fear. Zera Yacob was that kind of rebel. He did not command an army, and he did not build an empire. He did not rise from a palace or from one of those famous schools history never stops celebrating. According to the autobiographical tradition preserved in the Hatata, he was born near Aksum in 1599, the son of poor farmers, and educated in Ethiopia's traditional schools, studying the Psalms, sacred music, poetry, and scriptural interpretation. He began not at the center of power, but at its edge. That matters because Zera Yacob was not a stranger throwing stones from outside religion. He knew the world of faith from within. He knew its language, its rhythms, and the force it could exert over a human life. He understood how sacred words could guide, discipline, inspire, and also divide. And that is exactly why the conflict around him became impossible to ignore. The Hatata's life account says he was educated by traditional Ethiopian scholars and also encountered European missionaries, then was driven from home by the struggle between those worlds. This is where his story becomes dramatic, not because legend tries to make him larger than life, but because the pressure on him was real. He stood inside a world where competing authorities claimed to speak for truth, and where inherited certainty demanded submission. Most people, when history corners them, choose survival. They repeat what they are told. They lower their eyes and call obedience wisdom. Zera Yacob did something else. According to that same autobiographical account, he fled in the night. He left the safety of the familiar world and moved toward the wilderness, eventually finding refuge near the Takazi River in a remote cave. That image lies at the center of his life. Not a philosopher in a court, not a scholar surrounded by applause, but a hunted mind alone with silence, stone, and questions no institution could answer for him. And in that cave, something extraordinary happened. He did not collapse into despair. He did not trade thought for comfort. He did not decide that truth belonged to the loudest authority. He thought. He examined. He stripped inherited claims down to their foundations and asked the question that makes every dogma nervous. Is it true? Scholars describe the philosophy associated with Zera Yacob as centered on lebuna reason, intelligence, understanding, a God-given human capacity to distinguish truth from falsehood and good from evil. In that vision, reason is not the enemy of faith. Reason is the light by which faith itself must be judged. That is what makes him so powerful. He was not arguing that human beings should worship themselves. He was arguing that the Creator did not give intelligence only for it to be buried under fear. That is rebellion at its highest level. Not rebellion for spectacle. Not rebellion for vanity. But rebellion against the humiliation of pretending not to see. Because once you accept that reason matters, then no institution gets a free pass. No tradition becomes sacred simply because it is old. No doctrine becomes untouchable simply because it is enforced. And Zera Yacob followed that logic wherever it led. The Hatata presents him as sharply critical of the corruptions he saw in organized religion across multiple traditions, including Orthodoxy, Catholicism, Islam, and Judaism. He also develops arguments about God, morality, and the problem of evil. That is why he does not belong in history merely as a local curiosity. He belongs there as a serious philosopher, a man trying to understand how a just creator, a rational mind, and a violent world could all exist together. What makes this story endure is that his exile was not only geographic, it was intellectual. He was cut away from easy belonging, from the comfort of joining one side and hating the other, from the safety of borrowed certainty. In that isolation, he discovered something many people never discover at all: that truth can cost you company, that conscience can push you into lonely places, and that solitude, when endured honestly, can become a workshop for freedom. Later, the account says, he descended from the cave and lived a simple life in Enfraz. He did not reappear as a conqueror, and he did not return crowned by history. He returned quietly. And in that quiet life, he gained a disciple, Walda Haywat, who encouraged him to write down his ideas. That detail matters because it gives the story its final turn. The hidden thinker does not vanish into silence. His thought is preserved. What began as inward resistance becomes written philosophy. In 1667, he wrote the Hatata, The Inquiry. Even the title is perfect. Not the final answer, not the law, not the command. An inquiry. That is the mark of a true rebel of thought. He does not ask you to kneel before his certainty. He asks you to think. He does not conquer through force. He endures through clarity. He does not promise comfort. He demands honesty. And maybe that is why his story still feels alive. Every age creates new authorities. Every age invents new pressures to conform. Every age rewards repetition and punishes independent judgment. And every age needs at least a few people willing to risk isolation rather than betray their own minds. Zera Yacob stands among those people. He matters not because his life was loud, but because it was disciplined. Not because his rebellion was theatrical, but because it was exact. Not because he escaped conflict, but because he passed through it and refused to let fear do his thinking for him. That is why he belongs in this series. He is not just an Ethiopian philosopher. He is one of history's clearest examples of intellectual courage without spectacle. A poor man's son, shaped by religious learning, driven into exile, thinking in a cave, and building a philosophy around the conviction that human beings were given reason for a purpose, and that may be the deepest form of rebellion there is. To stand in a world full of noise, pressure, and inherited certainty, and still say, I will examine, I will question, I will not call a lie the truth simply because fear demands it. That was Zera Yacob. And sometimes, the most dangerous man in history is the one who learns to think alone.